Okay, why is the video not playing? Go.
Hi, hi everyone. Welcome to Freedom Friday. Uh, Great to have Friday roll around again. My God, time just seems to be flying by so fast, and I just feel like I was just yesterday we were doing this. But yeah, today we've got a title. Our title for today is Trust in DeFi. Don't trust in centralized bankers. We want to trust DeFi, and we want to start trusting blockchain, and we want to start trusting ourselves as well. And so that's what I'm going to go into. I'm going to sort of present um, a key piece of any system, is particularly a financial system. It relies on trust. If you lose the trust of people, then the system will collapse. And I think that's sort of what we're seeing today. I think the system is collapsing because people are withdrawing their energy, and because they're withdrawing their energy from the system because they no longer have trust. We don't have trust in our authorities. We don't have trust in the system, and yeah, we just trust is pretty much gone, and that is very foundational. So I'm going to bring up my slides. I'll just share my screen, and I'll bring up my slides so I know where I am at. So here we go. Um, so why trust is vital and how technology can assure it. So I mean, I'm not saying that here that technology is the be all and end all, by the way, and we we've got to restore trust. That's what it's all about, and technology can provide a vital piece in that. I think this world, and it's so polarized, we have to be very balanced in our view, because I know that there are some aspects of technology that we wouldn't want to necessarily trust. And so we don't want to be blind and just have our blinkers on. So it's having that happy balance between technology and restoring trust in the community. That's essentially what I'm trying to drive at here. So when we look at the existing system, when we look at our financial world and life, it's everything is based on our belief and on trust. And to give you some examples, like our current fiat cash is literally based on nothing. So it's not backed by anything. So how can we have trust in something that is essentially worthless? And the reason why it still holds some value is simply perception. It simply comes down to our belief that worth, it is worthy, it has worth. However, now with the events of the last couple of years or so, we can see that is very quickly eroding. Awareness of people now has grown in magnitude, and so hence the system is coming down in as a response to that. Yeah, so basically the system is crashing due to lack of trust. um, it is due to other things as well, like the system itself is not designed, the current system as it is not designed to be lasting forever. They have created it that way. The system's crashing also because they are essentially, the bankers need to crash it because the debt has got to completely unsustainable levels. So, but in tied in with all this comes trust. You know, once people's trust is broken, you can never. Usually, that means a lot of other things get broken with it. Relationships break down, and it creates this giant domino effect. And you experienced it in our own selves when we thought we could trust somebody. They might have been we thought a loyal lieutenant for our business, or trust in a partner, or whatever. And when that trust is broken, it creates quite a painful fallout. So take that and magnitude it. Take that to the magnitude of a whole world system, and you can see there's going to be a lot of broken relationships. A lot of anger is going to come out of this, and a lot of other things. So money has become maligned a lot due to the lack of trust and in its value. But it's not just trust in its value, it's trust in those that create it. It's in trust in the whole entire system. And money is maligned because of that. And because that money is basically becoming worthless, it's having this subtle but quite invisible effect, a ripple effect, which is about to become visible. So it's sort of working its way through, you might like say. So we work trusting that we will be looked after in return. And I think a lot of people now are getting very, very disillusioned with that. Um, a lot of people are working very, very hard, and they find when they look at their bank account at the end of the week, they're going backwards. And yet they are expending all their energy, they're doing everything they can. And by the time they pay tax and pay all these expenses and fees, and with inflation going completely off the Richter scale, I believe it's at least double, if not triple, what the actual reported figures are now. You only have to go and look in the store and measure the price of things compared to what they were a year or two ago, and you can see for our own eyes that inflation, particularly on food and obviously on petrol, is just, way more than 7% odd. The people that are controlling the world have now become visible, and we can see that they are not worthy of our trust. Why would we give trust to somebody else we don't even know just because people say we should? That's just blind trust, and that is coming partly because we just wanted to get on with our own life, and we didn't pay any real attention to the people around us. We seemed to be doing okay, and so we just took our eyes off what was really happening in the world. And if you look at the journalists, you look at our government, you look at the so-called financial leaders, all throughout the whole the whole lot of them are not worthy of our trust. Apart from obviously there are people that stand out that maybe are, but even then, we should not give our trust blindly to someone else, and we must start then trusting ourselves. And I'll go more into that a little bit later. So now we are creating an alternative system that we can potentially trust. And I'll say potentially, hang on, I'm just going to plug in my battery. Potentially, because we cannot blindly trust everything that the blockchain or crypto presents us either. Like I said, it's a balance. It's not, we don't apply blanket rules, and it's not just black and white. It's not like either or. We've got many, many choices in between. There is a big gray area, and this is where knowledge comes in. This is where we've got to do our research so that we can then weed out the gems amongst all the other out of the chaff, if you like. We've got to sort the wheat from the chaff. So with centralization, I see centralization as one of the key infrastructural issues that is now breaking down. It's breaking down very fast, actually, in real time. So centralization no longer brings trustworthiness. Once we could trust many of our authorities, and it seemed like they were doing the right thing, and there was oversight. There was some auditing, and people could generally vote out the people if they didn't think they were doing the job. Now that is gone. There are people working behind the scenes of the government and that what they call NGOs, non-governmental organizations, who are essentially, they are the ones that are pulling the strings, and they are telling the governments what to do now. In light of that, they're trying to create a one world, a centralized world with a centralized money and a centralized government. So yeah, so there's no transparency. There's no transparency at all. Do they ever transparently reveal to us the truth of what's happening? Do they ever lie? Are they going against? Are they saying one thing and then they get into power and then do the exact opposite? It's happening all the time. They just tell us what they want us to hear so that they can get in. And I think we just got to stop supporting a system that does that and the people behind it. There's no auditing. Not even the Federal Reserve has never ever been audited. A private organisation too, to boot, that is largely controlling how the financial world runs. It is a great bearing on New Zealand and on virtually every other country in the world, because they've all subscribed to the Federal Reserve type system. And there's no oversight. There's 100% counterparty risk for us. In other words, they are the counterparty. We've put all our faith into another party, and the biggest risk is them. The biggest risk is what they are essentially doing, and their integrity is completely shot. And censorship, the censorship that we've been under in the last few years is just off the charts, and that's further eroding the trust. So it's becoming just this downward spiral. And since COVID, trust has really gone out the window. A lot of people have woken up since COVID, and trust has been lost in banks, governments, corporations, and these other three-letter agencies, as I call them. I just I think it's getting really crazy now, and we need less rulers. We need a smaller government, and I believe that is coming, because of the same basic inherent technology that's creating crypto as well. The technology can be used to create, we've talked about it before, decentralized autonomous organizations or decentralized autonomous governments or councils. So, as I say, technology has a very important place in creating neutral trust. How is this possible? Well, by the way that blockchain is created is inherently a trustless system. That means that we don't need to trust somebody else. It means that we can trust the code, and the code is the result of programming. and that programming, trust can be coded into that. The trust can be coded into a system via its decentralized nature and smart contracts. These are essentially what will sort of govern the product or the result of the actual project. So trust in external parties is no longer tenable. And in my view, I think that I would rather put trust in technology than in a person. But I think that it's important for us to trust ourselves so that then we know what we're going into. We don't just, as I say, we don't blindly trust the blockchain either, because not different projects are created differently, and there are untrustworthy people behind, I believe, some of those who haven't got our best interests at heart. So they are not they're not coding their um, higher ethics into the code. So decentralization is an automated way for people to see the proof. They say the proof is in the pudding. And if obviously if the pudding doesn't taste good, then it's not good. But if we can see that through distribution and decentralization and the way the smart contract works through fair allocation of funds, quality, transparency of how the project is doing, statistics of the amount of liquidity held and the percentage of your return on your staking, for instance, then you can get to see, that it is working. And so you're going to stick with something that is working. And if it is immutable, if that means it cannot be changed, the inherent structure or coding cannot be changed, then chances are that, barring any existential threats or outside, problems, it should carry on like that. So then we can sort of start to relax. So for the invisible is always manifesting into physical. This is what energy does. And so this is where it's very interesting, is where people, because it's not tangible, because the code and blockchain is not a tangible thing, people have struggled to understand how it can actually work. But it's no different with values like trust and truth, faith, knowledge, responsibility, love. All these values always manifest into our world. They will manifest, or the opposite will manifest, depending on our inner world as well. So so we've got to remember that everything comes from energy. Everything comes from an invisible. And you could say that trust is invisible. But if someone has proven to be trustworthy, then it's become visible. And then from there, you can rely on it and you can start to build some reliability. In this way, technology is like an anchor that can make trust possible, and prosperity and even distribution and all the other things that go around it to make trust inherently seen, if you like. So trust also brings faith. So trust is quite foundational in a value. I see trust as, it's a bit like trust and knowledge. These are quite foundational in their nature, because they produce other things from it. And one of the things that I see trust brings is faith. And faith is like that as I say, it's the evidence of things unseen. So it's another, from the unseen comes the seen. And so trust and faith I see are like partners. Faith is really the basis of what all religion has been um, built upon. Religion is a faith, if you like, in God or in a divine power. But faith really is in us. We don't need religion to tell us that. Just like we don't need religion to tell us that we should not trust others blindly either, and that includes, a God, if you like. So if we have more trust, and it's that bringing us more faith, that's naturally going to free up our energy and our time, because that is what happens downstream from that, because we're not putting so much of our energy into worry, into anxiety, into fear. We naturally can move our energy into the things we really want rather than what we don't want. So the experience of the blockchain brings hope and faith. And with faith, you have more possibilities and greater resonance, greater frequency in your own energy, in your own mind, and in your heart as well. Because really, trust and faith is a heart-based reality, ultimately. It could start in the mind, but it will reside and end up in the heart. Blockchain and decentralization can create passive income. Therefore, this brings more trust in the system, thus resulting in more time and energy in your life, and this creates a virtuous cycle. So, like for myself, now I am getting into a situation now where, after dealing with crypto for 7 years, I've been, I can see the results that it is doing in my life, how it's affecting my partner as well, how it's affecting my wider family. They are seeing the difference in me. I have a bit more of a spring in my step. I've got more energy. I'm nowhere near the stressed out person that I was. And I've got more money as well. I feel more prosperous. And so that's just creating this virtuous cycle. And so investing in blockchain assets provides peace of mind, as the results are predictable based on the code. Once we've found the blockchain and the project that we believe in, and we've tested it and measured it and done our due diligence, of course, we've got to do all of that. Once we're seeing and getting these predictable results, and then we can start to relax. It just kind of makes sense. As the economy is moving to robotics and AI, everything is becoming automated right throughout, from manufacturing to what's happening online to all kinds of areas, all areas of business. We will need passive income to survive. There is going to be a lot less jobs out there, particularly the blue collar, as well as now white collar jobs, because smart contracts essentially are going to render eventually lawyers and accountants and service providers pretty much null and void. So we've got to get prepared to start now getting used to that passive income could be a new normal. People talk about the new normal. Well, let's create a real normal. Let's base it on something that brings in these intrinsic values, intrinsic things that we're going to need to provide for our families and ourselves, and so that we can live out our purpose and have that time to put into giving back into humanity, or whatever it is that makes you, feel inspired. Time and energy is our greatest resource. It absolutely is our greatest. Well, before money or our work, it all starts with time and energy. and money's just a byproduct, and our work. Without energy, we wouldn't have the energy to work in the first place. So we've got to start sort of readjusting our mindset and putting our mind more on the causes of things rather than always being at the receiving effect end. If we're constantly looking at the effects and making them our goals, then we're actually not doing a productive use of our time or our energy. So we can now choose to work less and reap more as our awareness raises. And so that's a key part. This isn't just about being lazy, or this isn't just about working less and becoming a couch potato or a lazy slob. This is about us also having to raise our awareness and our consciousness and um, our conscience as well. Actually, it's all about that. It has to go in tandem. Otherwise, we're going to miss the point of why we need to free up our time. It's not just to be self-serving ego, because these times that are upon us, we're going to be needed out there in the world. So trust ourselves first. This is really, really vital, and I don't think a lot of people truly trust themselves. And those that have now built some trust in themselves, I bet you that when you look back, you realize just how fundamental it actually is. This is the real work, really. This is the inner work, self-trust, self-responsibility. That all happens from within. So this means building knowledge as well. To trust ourselves, we have to find knowledge which we can sort of integrate into our being, so that we've got something for the trust to actually cohese with. We don't just trust without doing any research. We don't. Again, it's just otherwise it's just blind faith, or it's just that's why we run to a religion, or why we hand over our money to the bank, because we believe that they can do a better job than us. And so now that we have this blockchain opportunity, we have to also build our responsibility, our self-responsibility, and trust can also build accountability as well. And that's accountability in others as well as our own accountability, which just simply means to account. It's the ability to count. It's the ability to be counted upon, just like responsibility is the ability to respond. So accountability and responsibility sound similar, but they're actually subtly very different. The new system requires a higher level of self-responsibility, as I've already said that. It definitely requires us to be more on our game. If we're managing our own money and we're trying to earn these passive incomes and that, we have to put the work in there so that we do have that ability to respond to the coming times and respond to our own impulses and what the blockchain and crypto produces as well. Your degree of self-trust will be mirrored outside. So, this is why it starts with us first, and it starts internally. We don't build ourselves from the outside in. We build our life from the inside out. And if we are, whatever we're lacking, whether it's lack of trust in self, lack of knowledge, lack of confidence, lack of love, lack of our own truth, all of these things will be mirrored outside in the world. And these are presented to us through people, through breakdowns in communication, breakdowns in businesses, relationship, loss of money. These are always being mirrored back to us almost 24/7. And we've got to now start using our responsibility to start recognizing this and start changing it. The time has come now. The world is changing. It is moving into a completely new paradigm. So now is the time. We attract what we are and what we need to learn. So the world is mirroring back to us who we are, where we are, but it is also mirroring back to us what we need to learn, so that, and we need to know the difference. If we are really starting to build up a lot of self-trust and love, then it will be mirroring that back to us, and then that's confirmation that we're on the right track. But we can always tell what we need to learn by what others are telling us or showing us, or what the world at large is showing us. So and this all goes hand in hand with responsibility and trust. When we say we are awakening, the awakening is actually mainly happening within us. When I see a lot of people say that, this is the Great Awakening, simply based on external truths, so-called truths in inverted commas, that have been presented to us. And yeah, there is some degree of that. We do get some of our awakening that way, when we start to find out about certain things happening in the world. But the majority of awakening is a subtle event happening within yourself. And as we truly waken within, then the world that we see without will change dramatically. I'm absolutely living proof of that myself. Truth, consciousness, and our level of freedom is also reliant on trust. So that's almost like they're all interdependent of each other. They're all kind of important in their own right, but they're also all interrelated. And if we can start building our truth and understanding what truth is internally, and the truth as in the natural laws. That's what I mean by truth. I mean the natural laws of the universe. That, to me, is the ultimate truth. And when we start building that with our inner trust and our conscious awareness and our sense of freedom and what freedom means, then we really are creating a life, because the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts. But when you put those parts into cohesion and integrate them with your physical life, then you will get the quantum results. You're always only as strong as your weakest link. So we have to kind of create this, and it takes work. It takes a lot of work, and a lot of experience. Experience really is the ultimate product of experiential understanding, is the ultimate kind of knowledge, really. So trust creates community, and community is unity with a whole bunch of people. That's all it is. Community is unity amongst the people coming together. Come into unity, or simply unity within yourself. You will attract a community of other unified souls, and that's the type of community that we really need to build. And it also will create a distributed prosperity as well, through the application into the physical through the blockchain. This is because we get attracted Trust creates community because we get attracted to people with similar values and frequencies. Trust is a frequency, just as love is a frequency, just as fear is a frequency, a very low frequency. Anger is actually a higher frequency. Anger is coming into that point of really awakening because it's a lot of energy that needs to come out, like a volcano kind of erupting. So anger is, to me, is a sign that people are awakening when it start when you start needing to vent and that sort of thing. Because as we're awakening up and we realise that all these things have happened around us, and the media and the government if they are lying, like I think they are, then it's natural we're going to experience a bit of anger. So we become the company we keep. So a community of more advanced souls will also raise us up. So they often say that if you want to know how to get wealthy, just hang out with a whole lot of much wealthier people, and you'll get wealthy. But we can do this on many different levels and many different applications. It's not just about wealth. It's also about being with people that you resonate with and you love and you can trust. With a community you trust, then we have a powerful alliance that cannot be stopped. So if you think about it, if we are building a real community that we can trust, and we're connected to a blockchain crypto project that we also very much trust, and it is producing great results, then that is one powerful alliance that cannot be stopped. There is nothing that is going to stop a project like that. This is why they bombard us with all this FUD. This is why so many, the media and even on social media, there's so many people that want to attack us for being into crypto because they see it as they see something different. They see it going the other way, and that's why they put a lot of fear and doubt into people's minds, so that it throws everything out of balance. But once we become a certain community and the 100th monkey syndrome starts to kick in, we will be a force to be reckoned with. But it's just going to take some time, because obviously there's scammers out there. There are people creating projects that are not good and luring people in. There's obviously a lot of fish hooks. It's not just a as I say, it's not a 4-lane highway with nobody on it. We are not just strolling down the road here having a picnic. It is going to be a lot of things to deal with, but we're dealing with it, and we're growing all the time in this community. Blockchain and decentralization can help us achieve that, because it's creating, as I say, it's creating anchors. It's creating an anchor for us to galvanize around. It's creating that trust. It comes back to the trust again, but it's creating. It is creating foundations. It's creating infrastructure that then we can fill. So lack of trust in government, financial institutions, etc., means the current paradigm system must change. It must change, and it is changing. For those who have the eyes to see and are even half awake, you can see that actually there is a lot going on, and there's a lot of chaos out there. But this doesn't have to be a fearful thing. This doesn't have to be a traumatic thing. I know it will be for a lot of people, but for some of us who are already prepared and for who are already seen it coming. In my case, 20 years ago, I got told about these times was coming. I was even told about a biological weapon coming many, many years ago. And after I got over my shock and my horror, then I sort of realized that, it's very possible, and and it's happened. So preparation helps us to make the change, and mental preparation as well as emotional preparation, research, and all of those things all help us. But for those that aren't ready for it and are going to just get slammed by this tsunami, if you like, I can quite understand why they will be traumatized. I can't quite understand why people are going to be very upset, very angry, very lost and confused. So this is even making me more committed to becoming more abundant and prosperous, and uh, cracking this nut of the blockchain, because then we can be of real use and real service to the community. Um, it's really, I think, important for us. Again, this is an awareness thing where if we're going to have freedom in the world, we have to have, everyone has to be free. I mean, we can't just have freedom just for us. And I think that's what, I mean, they demonize freedom now. It's almost like you're almost a terrorist if you dare to suggest we want freedom in the world. But freedom is absolute basic human right, and we need to have. The authorities just don't want us to have freedom because it doesn't suit their agenda. It's as simple as that. There is an agenda going on, and rather than fighting it, though, I believe now we just have to simply create the new model that Buckminster Fuller said. He said, just to remind you, you don't you don't change an existing model by fighting it. You change by creating a better model that then renders the old model or system obsolete. And I think that is probably the single most important statement that just about anyone could make in this current time. So that's all for my presentation. It's a relatively shorter one today because we'll just have the Q&A, and we can have a bit of a discussion, and just and just have a bit of a
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Yeah, just to remind you that the whole point of creating the blockchain and cryptocurrency was actually to mathematically solve the problem of trust. So maybe if I'll bring us back on so we can see both of us. Boom, boom, and Tony. Yeah. So the people who invented blockchain, whoever they are, and who invented Bitcoin and the other parts of the blockchain eventually, they had been working on that problem for possibly 10 or 15 years previously, and this was based on a hypothetical problem. This problem is called the Byzantine generals problem. And so there's this hypothetical situation where there's four generals who are separate from each other, and they're surrounding this castle or fort or whatever it is, and they need to communicate with each other without letting on to the people in the fort that they're going to all attack, say, at the break of dawn, right? And so the whole problem was, how can one send an envoy to the next, and how can that one who is on one corner, because obviously they didn't have phones and there's no other way of messaging except through an envoy, how could they guarantee that their envoy reached the other side and actually pass the message on? Because if only one general attacked, right, in the morning, then they'd be overpowered by the people in the fort. But if all of them attacked at the same time, then they would overpower the fort. So the question was, how could they create communication that actually, and that is a problem of trust, right? And I don't think they actually discussed this mathematically and for a long time, and they couldn't come up with a solution. But this was the basis of the blockchain. Is like, okay, how do you trust someone you have no idea, you've never met them, and without having to expose who you are, without having to expose who they are, and without having a central central party. And this is the whole reason why we have centralization, is to have trust in a system, trust in the government, trust that someone is going to govern everybody correctly, or trust that someone is going to look after our money, or trust that someone is going to whatever all these institutions do for us. The problem, as Tony said, is the problem with centralized trust is it became corrupted. One is because it became obscure, or lack of transparency, right? And so there was no transparency. You couldn't see what the decisions were being made. And then the other one was mutability, in that facts could be changed, right? And so then that brings in lack of accountability and transparency, and therefore temptation to corruption. And when there is temptation, human beings fall to it, and that's what happens. And so the whole point of the blockchain was, okay, how can we eliminate all that? And so they created this system which is entirely transparent. You can go and see what's happened on the blockchain, forever and ever since the beginning of the blockchain. Plus, it's immutable, so what is registered on the blockchain can't be changed. And so with those two things in place, transparency and immutability, then you get it changes the whole kind of environment. And so then, as Tony said, what you need to do then is to trust the blockchain. Can we trust the blockchain? And this is where, in smart contracts, where you start having programmable code, and which do all sorts of things, bells and whistles, and investing and interest bearing and all those things. Well, you need to make sure that they work. One is that they work, they don't have bugs, right? And two, that there's no backdoors for the developers. Like, they could say, well, come and invest in this system and we'll give you rewards. And then when everybody's invested, then they drain everything and run away. So how do you avoid the backdoors? So now, more and more in the blockchain, we've established one is to the way to make sure that a smart contract is kind of bomb proof is through usage, right? If a smart contract has been used, if billions of dollars have gone through a smart contract over a year and a half or 2 years, and it hasn't been hacked seriously, then you can be pretty sure that it's trustworthy. It has built trust. And also, a lot of smart contracts now go through an auditing process. So they go through a third party who will then look at the code, which, by the way, is completely open. It's open source, so anyone can look at the code. And they will look at the code and see if there are any backdoors, if there are any bugs, any obvious loopholes or weaknesses. So auditing has become an important thing to look for. Ultimately, then we gain trust in pure mathematics. And what is mathematics? Well, mathematics is nature codified, right? That's
Yes,
all. That's all.
exactly.
That's all it is. So if we
Yeah.
can, if the mathematics is correct, then we can have 100% trust in it. You know, it's like when you use a computer, and if you miss out a dot or you miss out a comma or something, the thing doesn't work, and you're going, why doesn't it work? And and all you have to do is put in the dot or the comma, and then suddenly everything works. So mathematics is like that. It's either on or off. It's either true or it's not. You know, it either works or it doesn't. So that's the beauty of mathematics, is then you take away the human um, bias and the human corruptibility element, and then you just put mathematics in its place as the central area of trust. So I think this is a really interesting experiment to see, well, does it work? Is it going to work? You know, and and we are part of this experiment. We are testing it. We are trying it out. We put our money into it. We buy into it and we invest in it. So, you know, and ultimately, as Tony said, for me, in my experience, I learned very early on that trust, even as a teenager, that trust is the backbone of society. Because where I grew up in a society that was very dog eat dog, and people always tried find ways to, you know, outplay the other and to scam the other and to, you know, and when you've got all the parties all trying to outplay each other, it becomes quite a vicious thing, and there's no trust at all. It's just like uh and as Tony said, that's a huge waste of energy, because there's anxiety on all sides, there's deviousness on all sides. They're all trying to out manipulate the other, and the amount, can you imagine the amount of mental energy wasted in trying to out manipulate all the other parties that you're involved in, whether it's in business, society, or government? And so you look at these societies which don't have trust, and there's a lot of wasted energy, and in the end, they become highly inefficient, highly corrupted, and in the end, they remain poor. You know, like 60 years after their independence, well, they're still poor, or rather, there's still a whole group of people who are still poor, while some are fantastically rich. You know. So I think trust is the foundation of society. When you have trust, then it, as Tony says, it frees up energy. Then you can just get on with life and get on with transacting without having to have the anxiety. And yeah, you agree, Tony?
Yeah, well, I couldn't disagree with that, because you're
Yeah,
basically echoing what I was saying
yeah,
and
yeah,
putting it in your own terms, which is great. I really love that what you said too about the mathematics, because that, you know, basically the blockchain is just, yeah, the code is just numbers,
yeah,
and we're essentially a manifested mathematical natural code as well. Our
yes,
bodies, just
yes.
ask Leonardo da Vinci, he knew. He,
That's right.
he did. He actually broke down and analyzed the body and realized that we're all the links of our digits. You know, no, I say digits. I mean, even our
Digits,
fingers are
yes,
called
our
digits.
fingers. That's right.
You know,
Yeah,
but the length of the digits of your fingers, your hand, your arm, and the rest of your body are all in a perfect Fibonacci kind of Fibonacci sequence.
yes,
And
yes,
the chart analysis, when they analyze a chart, they talk about the Fibonacci sequence, and if it
yeah,
reaches a certain Fibonacci, then often the crypto is going to explode, because they can predict. So it even shows up that way, but
yes,
it shows up also in the amount of money that we receive, the 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 glue, it provides the glue to that community, as there's so many things at
yes,
play here.
yes, yes.
This,
That,
energy is becoming manifest, and simply the blockchain is just like a doorway to that. It's just like a tool that is used to
Mm.
bring something visible to the visible.
Yeah, yeah, and that decentralization effect is also that, it brings in the transparency and the immutability, but also, like you were saying, in the DAOs, now we have these decentralized autonomous organizations where there is no, well, ultimately they have to start with a centralized group of people who create this thing, but
Yeah,
ultimately they devolve, and then then it's a flat kind of hierarchy, or no hierarchy, but of a group of people all contributing towards a combined mission, or a single mission. And this opens up all sorts of amazing possibilities, uh,
mm,
of being able to work, being able to contribute, and being able to create something that builds resources, financial resources, human resources, and then creates this energy in order to do projects in the world. Whether it's like, environmental projects, or helping a particular group of people, or health projects. So there's all this potential. And I think as more and more of these groups and organizations start happening, and we are sorting ourselves out as communities rather than relying on handouts from the government, then the government is going to find itself out of a job. Because the
yeah,
community will be running on DAOs. They'll be actually self-managing, right? And
that's
so
right.
then the government says, well, you got to do this or you got to do that, and then, like, nobody's listening because everybody's just getting on with their lives, and actually hopefully succeeding through this decentralized system. And so I think it'll be a really interesting scenario where the governments will realize that, because if you look at what's been happening over the last 50 years, is that governments have become more and more and more complex, more regulated. I mean, in the US, for instance, there's some legislation which are millions of pages long. I mean, what the heck? Who actually puts all that legislation in place? Millions of pages. Same with the EU, and this is what a lot of people, when I was in the UK and the EU was just growing, people were saying, my God, now they're controlling the size of our tomatoes. Like, if you're in a little village in France, the EU tells you, what tomatoes to grow and what size, and how much you can sell, and all that. And it's all happening in a central place in Brussels or wherever it was, by bureaucrats who have no clue about tomatoes. So it became a highly centralized bureaucratic system. And I think what's going to happen is, as people take more control through DAOs and through reestablishing trust, all these guys in Brussels and whatever are going to find themselves out of a job, and then this whole thing will dissolve, and then we'll move into a different system. Uh,
Mm,
yeah. And of course, in order then to do that, as you said, Tony, I totally agree, is that then we need to become self sovereign. And in order to become self sovereign, we actually need to trust ourselves completely. We have to develop that confidence in ourselves. Otherwise, we doubt ourselves, we doubt our abilities, and then we get stuck, every time we come up against an obstacle. And this is what we are finding as a lot of us go into the blockchain. We are trying our wallets and our this and that, and sometimes we tell ourselves, oh, I'm not good at technology, I can't cope, or I don't have the ability, and then you are always calling on someone to help you, or you just come to a stop. And I think this is a big paradigm shift that we need to take in ourselves, to say, I can do this. I can do this. This DeFi is for me. It's been created for me, and I can find my way in it, and I can find my way in it easily and safely. So trust, but essentially, I think we've been led down the garden path of trying to fix ourselves, on trying, self improvement, self-fixing, I'm not good enough, and all those things. One of the big realizations I had at one point was that actually there's nothing to fix. I'm actually okay, right? I don't need to fix myself. I'm actually okay. And so building that trust that we are essentially okay, I think, is a big step in then loving yourself, caring for yourself, and then moving into the world in a confident way, self-sovereign. Yeah, well, I think I've said enough there. uh,
No, it's good.
yeah,
It's good.
yeah.
I'm glad you said that. It's absolutely, to me, that is, yeah, fundamental truths that we need to
Mm,
live by. We need to start focusing on building those fundamental building blocks. We need to put energy into, not just what to think, but how to think, and consciously direct our thoughts, and then be aware of how we're feeling about it. This is the real secret that came out of the Essenes, and the Essenes with Greg
mm,
Braden brought forth was his, well, and a few others, is that thought without real feeling is powerless,
right.
and feeling without thought is directionless. And I
Okay.
absolutely, that just totally blew my mind apart.
Mm,
And I
mm,
realized this is where we've got to get over this polarization. When I say they, I mean what the powers that be are working on with their narratives is to divide and conquer and have everything. You're either in this camp or you're this camp. You know,
yeah, yeah.
if you're either a right wing, you're a neo-Nazi, you're a white supremacist, all that, and if so if you are conforming to that, then you're against the environment, and you're
Yeah.
against all these other narratives over on the other side, where you have to be, a liberal is apparently now, you know, if you're
Yes.
not a liberal, you know, it's,
uh,
fate worse than death. I
yeah, I
mean,
know.
good
I,
Lord.
I,
I mean,
I'm not sure whether liberal is supposed to be right wing or left wing. I've heard different definitions of liberals, and it's like, I think the big problem, as you say, the big problem is identity. And this is why sages always ask, the first question is, they ask yourself, who am I? And people will say, well, I'm a man, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a New Zealander, I'm a liberal, or whatever it is, I'm an
mm,
environmentalist. And then the sage will say, yeah, but what's behind that, what's behind that, what's behind that? And ultimately, if we can actually let go of all those identities, then we realize actually we are all kind of souls. We are all, essentially the same. And I think that is a very freeing thing to actually go past your identity. I mean, you can keep your identity for the purpose of operating in the world, because it can be useful. Like, you're an expert in this, or whatever it is, or you're a teacher, or those identities are useful. But if you can go behind the identity and come to the essential self, I think this is where the interesting bits happen, because then it frees you up. And
mm,
and and also, like you were saying, the dichotomy of thought and feeling. It reminds me of the tantric dichotomy is Shiva and Shakti, and basically they're the origins of the world, right? So Shiva is consciousness, and Shakti is the creator, or Prakriti is the creator, Purusha and Prakriti. And so without one, nothing happens in the world. Like with consciousness, the world is not created, but with the creator, who is Shakti, the Shakti needs to have consciousness in order to guide the creation, and to create it in a particular form, and with a particular meaning, or whatever it is. So Yeah, so these ideas, these dichotomies or polarities, well, they're not dichotomies because actually they're singularities, but they've been kind of subtly uh, opened up, isn't it, into dualities. Uh, these dualities go through the whole of all religion or spirituality and all wisdom, really, throughout history.
Yep, yep. By putting labels on people and identifying with labels, that's why we stay divided.
Hmm.
When we are associating with either the left or the right side of the paradigm, and we're not able to, as who's it wrote, "Never the twain shall meet."
Yes.
That's what's happening. People are not meeting. They're not finding the balance point in the middle and being able to see different sides, but be able to navigate down the middle. I mean,
Yes.
you can be aware of things that are happening in the world that maybe don't seem so great,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean we have to put our focus there
Yes.
24/7.
Yes.
I see it people happening all the time. They're putting their focus on the evil that's been done in the world. And yeah, I know that there are some not
Yeah,
very nice
yeah. There are
people.
a few people who think they can control the world, but
Yeah,
they're actually misguided. So the moment we know that they're misguided, then we can stop worrying about them and get on with our lives and build our lives. I think.
that,
Hey,
yeah, that's right. And the moment we have a solution, most
yeah,
when we're solution, we see that, and we have enough knowledge, and we have a solution, we can just get on with basically ignoring them because
yeah,
they only get their power because we hand it over to them,
yeah.
because we consent to them, because we either hang on every word and do what they say, or we fear them so much we're just feeding them that way.
That's right.
It's called
Fear.
it's really our emotional outbursts and output and our confusion and all that is food for them. And
Hmm.
because while we're powerless in that state, then they can do whatever they like. When we
Yeah.
get empowered, they can't enforce anything on us that we choose not to accept.
That's right.
Simple as that.
And that's why I think DAOs are the solution, the secret to regaining power. Because once we create DAOs, and a lot of I know people at the moment, I mentioned DAOs to a few people, and they say, "Ooh, how do you do that?" And they kind of think too big, but you can create a DAO out of for anything, like a knitting club or a school or even a classroom. You can create a DAO. So just like playing around with the concept of DAOs, and they're now free DAOs. You can set them up in minutes, play around with them, and see how it works. And I think communities will start exploring DAOs, and they might have a health DAO and maybe a schooling DAO and a commune cooperative DAO, like a marketing cooperative, like goods and services DAO, so or food DAOs. So I think the more that communities experiment with them and then they realize that they can become autonomous in themselves, that will shift the power away from these people that you're talking about, um, and then they become powerless because they've no one is relying on them or looking up to them or even listening to them, so they don't even have a sounding board anymore. um,
Mm.
I think one of the listening to you talk actually reminded me of a really poignant story of trust. If you don't mind, I share. It happened during the war, and we've heard this before, but I thought I would repeat it again.
Sorry,
Is
my
it?
dog just hit.
Yeah, yeah. Dog wants to listen to the story too.
She
It's
wants to be part of the conversation.
it was Christmas time, 1942, 43. I don't know what, or maybe it was the First World War. I think it was the First World War. Yeah, and and on Christmas Day, the German soldiers put their guns down and they came across to the no, I think the British soldiers went across to the German side and they celebrated Christmas. and they had drinks, and they shared their rations, and they had a game of football, and then no, and then the next day they went back to their sides, and the war started again. But for them to do that, I think, was a huge expression of trust, and a huge expression of the seeing of the humanness of each other. Whether we're German or British, we are fighting, but at some point we actually can come together and trust each other, and actually enjoy each other's company. So I think what you were saying, Tony, when that happens, then all these identities and labels and all that, we can actually just get rid of them, and just get on with life, and enjoying ourselves together, and playing football and whatever it is. Does anyone else have any comments around all that we've just talked about? Yeah. We are going to talk about different concepts like these, because these are essentially concepts which I think the people who are creating the blockchain, they are actually using these concepts as guiding principles for their projects on the blockchain, the really decentralized ones. Obviously, the centralized institutions want to get in on the blockchain and dilute that, but the true visionaries, their idea is to, how do we create trust, how do we create freedom, how do we create access to wealth, and all these. So we'll be exploring these different questions over the next few weeks. So I hope you've enjoyed that. And
great to see. I was just going to say, just thanks for the comments from Ari. Great to see that you're getting into the modules and that, and
good.
Awesome.
And please, guys, join the Discord. The Discord is for members, and we want to create a space in there that has trust, that we build trust amongst each other within that space, but it's also a space where we can communicate with each other, we can chat with each other, and share information. So, I've been talking to a few people. I've been doing some coaching, crypto coaching with a few people, and people are doing their own research, and they're discovering things, and they ask me, oh, what do you think of this? And I said, well, I don't know. I haven't even heard of it. They're saying, well, so-and-so said this, and, that there's this happening and whatever. So, you guys are all starting to do your research now. 2 months ago, you were complete newbies. Now you're doing research, and you're coming to me with stuff that I don't know. And Tony and I, we can only research as much as we can. This space is huge. So, guys, go out and explore areas that you resonate with, and please bring back what you find into the Discord and share it with all of us, so that we can all sort of benefit from your research. Yeah, of course, keep it to crypto and DeFi, but we would really welcome your contributions, and maybe we can have some voice chats and discussions around different people's findings. I discovered something about MetaMask the other day, which was interesting and concerning, and so I thought I would share it at some point, around consensus and all that, whether there's an ability for because I did hear that they have an ability to geo-fence MetaMask, so that you can't receive funds if you're in a certain place, or send funds. So that's and if that is true, that is very, very concerning, because that goes against all the principles of decentralization. And if that's going to happen, people are they're gonna leave MetaMask in droves. They're gonna look for alternatives. So Yeah.
That's why, and I've seen other concerning things about Ethereum. They present a front of decentralization, but actually it's not as decentralized because of consensus and the way they've
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
construct, and partly because of its proof of work as well. I really think that proof of
Yeah.
work
Well, they're
has
talking about the
major
merge.
things.
Yeah, they're talking about the big merge, which is shifting to proof of stake. Uh, but yeah, yeah, not sure what's going to happen there. But yeah, if you guys want to do some research in there, that can be some really really interesting research to do, like how decentralized is Ethereum, and that's why the alternatives like Cardano and Solana and Terra and all the others are alternatives that people might want to look at. The people who are the real decentralists, without putting a label on yourself, but we all want to achieve something that is the opposite of being centralized, and yeah. So
Absolutely. Absolutely, we need a decentralized world. We need the world to be redefined, and I think what the chaos that we're seeing now is the process of that is
yes,
happening. A
yes,
devolution is
yes,
happening of the existing system, and a evolution of consciousness and of people. Is happening. We're creating and we're evolving as well. Is actually this now argument about intelligent design versus evolution. It's actually both.
yeah,
You know, we're creating and we're evolving as
mm,
well.
mm.
And
Yeah,
yeah, it's a fantastic time to be alive. I'm actually I put
it
a
is.
post up that I'm excited. I am excited, and I can't hide it. And I haven't felt this way actually for
Yeah,
quite a while.
it's highly energizing. Yeah, yeah,
And there is just, I know there's so much change going on, but change is the only constant. Change is just change. People mainly think change is going to
it's
be bad, it's going to
yeah,
be negative because they
painful
want
and
the
yeah,
status quo. They don't realize that change needs to happen because we've got so desensitized into this kind of what's normal in the world, which is so not normal. It's abnormal. It's out of
yes,
balance.
yes,
So I think I celebrate this change. This is a change of the ages, and so it's going to be huge, whether we like it or not. It's coming, so we
mm,
might as well prepare. And blockchain is presented to us as a key. I wouldn't. It's not, like I said. It's not the be all and end all. I'm not going to become a crypto maximalist diehard and forget about the rest of my life. I'm just here to use it and create with it so that I can uh, put it in as part of a new foundation for really going on and doing what you want to do,
yeah,
be what you
yeah.
want to be.
Doing what you want to do,
And
working what you want to work,
yeah,
earning what you
that's
deserve.
right. Go where you want to go, say what you want to say, and blockchain is affording infinite possibilities there for not just the exchange of money or the
Mm,
value of internet, is the internet of value, as they call it. It's the exchange of information, our data, our
mm,
ID, as I said, voting, and protecting our intellectual property, our personal information, and being able to talk freely without
mm,
being censored.
mm.
That's what also the blockchain can offer, is a new kind of social media that will be truly based on free speech and censorship resistant technology.
Yeah, a social media where we become the owner and not the product, as in
Yeah,
Facebook, where you are not the owner, you are the product, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Which is what Punk Panda, which actually, if Tahira is still here, she shared with me Punk Panda messaging,
yes,
where
yes,
we get paid to share information, and you become literally a part owner, in this messaging service, which is providing all sorts of other things. And we're going to see, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to see huge revolutions in the technology, in the messaging, social media area, or media in general.
Yes.
Centralized media is just about history. I don't think anyone trusts the news now except the diehards. And it's just we've just got so much to be excited about. It's just that again, it's not visible. It doesn't. It's almost like I almost felt like, should I feel bad or guilty for feeling excited when so many people seem in doom and gloom? And I thought, nah.
Well, that's why we're here. We're trying to make the invisible visible, because at the moment DeFi is invisible, right? It's pretty much invisible in the mainstream. And so this is what our job is actually to make that visible to you, of course, and you are starting to see it, but also to the rest of the mainstream and the rest of the world, so they realize, wow, this is this fantastic opportunity. I'm excited too. It gives me energy. I spent many years in all sorts of psychological states, very kind of victim-oriented states, and low energy states, and I've never felt better really in my life. So, the years are coming on. I'm gaining more year badges, but as the years come on, I'm actually feeling more energized. So yeah, it's fantastic.
I am too, and so it's great to be able to share that with you. I mean, I'm seeing the difference it's having on Jenny as well, even my partner, and even my family members, particularly my sister, because I'm close to her. I've been sharing. She often attends out. She's part of DeFi Freedom, and it's really opened her eyes, and it's starting to filter out into my inner circle. A lot of my friends who thought I was an absolute nutter on many levels, they may be thinking, well, maybe he's not such a nutter after all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways,
okay.
On that note,
well, so that's right. And please check your emails. Join up on Discord. If you're not a member, become a member, then join up on Discord. If you're a member, you'll have been sent the link, and let's catch up over there. What we intend to do is have meetings like this, but voice meetings, voice chats, more frequent, at different times of the week, and catch up. So we've got quite a few things planned. So thanks a lot, guys. Have a fantastic weekend, and thanks a lot, Tony. Really appreciated that. And let's catch up early next week. Okay, talk soon.
Awesome. Cheers.
Bye.
See you. Bye. Talk soon.